What's up, YouTube? It's me, Matt38, and I thought we would talk today about the degradation, the degrading of WoW's art style. And it's something I've been saying for, 5 years, 6 years. Since Warlords of Draenor, I loved Warlords of Draenor's like cinematics, the art, all the way through. It was awesome. It was absolutely crazy. But it was just that slight angle of the higher resolution textures and things like that, and the new models. I don't really like that much. I think they look a bit cartoony. And what we've gone into in Midnight is effectively this cartoonishness going out of control. And Blizzard are effectively retroactively exercising the demon of the past, which is the grimdark-esque, Warhammer-esque, brutal amazing artworks which inspired, I think, would be hundreds to millions of players to actually draw. So, one of the main reasons for me, um, what later in my later years, I would do art a lot, paint a lot. I started out drawing stuff from World of Warcraft, and these paintings are masterpieces. They are so iconic, these old ones, that you can always look back at it, or you could show them to anyone. It's like, oh, that's World of Warcraft. That was a really insane thing what World of Warcraft always had from its early days, is differentiation. It, took ideas from different games and stuff, but it ultimately refine them and turn them better. And their art style was like the epitome of this. Seeing Blizzard trailers, Blizzard covers, they captured the imagination of young people. And people love this style. I don't think there's anyone who looks at this painting of Illidan and goes, oh, this looks terrible. So having that perspective and being fortunate enough to do art and to what I would say is a high level and understand painting to stuff like a high level is it's really awesome, but also it means you don't have that perspective of people who don't paint or haven't taken art seriously. So it's not an elitist mindset, but it's definitely a division and gap of perspective of things. And I think people who aren't artists um, might not care about these things as much as someone like me, because I find the new art style kind of offensive. And I find, the interviews where Blizzard are talking and they're like, like a recent interview with Holly Longdale, and she's sitting there going, oh, I think we regret calling it Warcraft. And you're like, for God's sakes, this is your entire roots of the game. And the important thing about the art style to me is its design. Design 101. If you create bad, you could create the best game in the entire world, but if it looks ugly, no one's going to play it. It's like if you released a retro computer today and it looked like something out of 1984, looked like an iMac, no one would buy it. Doesn't matter how good it is, no one would buy it because it's ugly. And that is that sort of minuscule thing people overlook. If the products are ugly, people don't want them. They don't want to buy them. It's why Classic has such an amazing fan base of people who just love that classic style. So the current art style of WoW suffers in several areas, and these are bad, bad areas, and it's a disease which is, in my opinion, getting worse. But let's start off with this image. You can look at how defined it is. You can look at the colors, everything. It just encapsulates that brutal, harsh reality of living in the Warcraft world. And then here, the Arthas. This is probably my favorite piece of Warcraft-esque art. I think it is insane. I just absolutely love it. It just shows you how cool these characters look. And this is a thing people don't talk about often, is how cool characters look. That's what inspires people to play this game. I think a lot of people saw Blizzard's trailers and Blizzard's characters before they played the game, and they didn't care that the game wasn't exactly the same, but just everything about it just seemed really cool and it captures imagination. I think in the modern age, it doesn't. First of all, my main critique of WoW's current art style is it's simplified. It's simplified coloring. There's no risk to it. It just looks generic now. You can see it's quite tonally flat. The colors used is a very common, art style for games these days. It's very tonally flat. There's no risks like in here. Everything's also geometrically, all the lines are very straight. Okay, you look at Arthas's armor and things like that, the curves are risks. You look at Illidan's armor, you look at the Black Temple, everything, the wing design. It's all very, there's so much more movement in these paintings. And, it's not crediting the artist, but I'm saying this is a very generic style which WoW is taking. And it's like the same style which you see those other games like Overwatch-esque stuff. And it's like this modern thing, very restrained and very safe. It is Warcraft, but it doesn't look like the original WoW. It doesn't, there's no stakes to it. There's no movement in this painting. It is just, okay, that's cool. It's not insanely, to my opinion, it doesn't take the risks that the old artwork had. And it starts with the artwork and then it bleeds into the design of the game. Every design choice, this is why the art style is so important. Art is the most important thing to branding, to marketing, to anything. If you have bad looking products or generic looking things, they won't stand out. Think of the PC. If you brought this 1980s computer, which looked like the 1980s computer, but was the best computer in the entire world, no one would use it because it's ugly. This is just another example of this WoW art style where everything is flat, but also the design of the characters is something you got to take note. I think the first thing to critique would be the character designs. You're not going to have artwork of Ebenhorn or the new Alex Strasza model. Why? Because they just, it doesn't stand out, it doesn't look unique. It just looks like generic fantasy. Doesn't look like wow. This you could take this photo and stick it in another game, and that's differentiation for you. You wouldn't feel out of place. The tonal flatness and the tonal and the design in all of the shapes, the models, the characters, their expressions, that safeness which current WoW design has, creates basically lack of expression, and it's a massive thing. Look, this is what I like to call the flat blob face. The flat blob face is where every character they 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 might look semi-angry here like Taronda, but again, the, the lighting kills any form of expression. Now you look at Arthas here, there's subtle hues here, big risks. It's not perfect, it's not the best, it's not a Da Vinci, but it's insanely good. Just because of the risk and the color differentiation. Here, everything's very flat, limited, restricted, safe. Um, Here, exact example with Illyria. Now, I don't mind her new look. It's 30 times less cool than her original model, and why Blizzard strayed away from that. But this is again this tonal flatness which affects the models. It makes them look very expressionless, and the design again is very limited, it's very restricted, it's very minimalist, but it doesn't feel Warcraft. And that's a really important thing because WoW's always had that amazing art style which could differentiate. And another thing which I'll critique as well is again, look at the buildings. Very tonally flat, grays, a lot of grays. There's no, it's not like Stormwind where everything's white basically, and stands out. Dalaran, just grays. Um, it's not ugly, but it's not the old style. And the old style really had magic to it because of its imperfections. Um, and yeah, art can be subjective, but this is a perfect example of how sticking true to the design. You look at the Nathrazim or the Dreadlords. Once again, look how much curves there are. Look how much risk there is in all of this. But this is true to the original model as well. The disproportionate hand size and the small head, the horns and everything. It's just an amazing looking model. You don't get that with Modern Warcraft anymore. Modern models and character design is designed not to look scary. I mean, if that guy turned up at your door, you would be terrified. It's there's so much abundance of fearing to be fearful. It's like, why why do your enemies, why do your villains not look like this? This guy is obviously evil. You don't need to have evil branded inside from his morality. Um, it's an insanely brilliant design, amazing design. Um, and you don't get these things because people don't take the risks. And you can look at the design, just look at the arm size, how threatening that is. I absolutely love the Nafrazine design, and I'm glad that the Warcraft 3 Reforged, for all its faults and flaws, it stuck true to this original WoW art style. Um, and Warcraft art style, and it looks amazing. If World of Warcraft followed this exact formula, we wouldn't be having a divided fan base. We wouldn't be having all these problems. And the small proportion of players who find something like this scary and can't tolerate in the game, like spiders, like the arachnophobia add-on, it's like, frankly, you shouldn't be playing a game. You should probably seek some mental help. I'm sorry. This is war. Villains are meant to look scary. Here's a brilliant example of what I term the Thanos blob face. This is the original Wrathguard model, and oh my god, was this my most favorite model in the entire game because it just looked awesome. The glowing pauldrons. You'd see these guys in Outland and Hellfire Peninsula or Neverstorm, and they were awesome. Again, think about this. It's the curves. You do have the flat lines, but the expression, it's not the perfect rendering. People say, well, it's low res. We're not talking about resolution. Resolution gets better over time. But in terms of design, look at the expression of that model. He looks awesome. He looks awesome. And this is what happens. The blob face. The cursed blob face. They can't even open their mouths now. You know, the difference with something like this, which looked threatening, and the blob face is pretty distinct. And this is what, tonal, flat lines, lack of curves, lack of expression, blob face. He's not smiling, he's just stuck his mouth together, and he doesn't open his mouth. This is bad design, this is good design. Good design stands out. It takes risks. Always take risks in design. It's what differentiates. This just looks generic. It's a massive thing WoW has at the moment, this disease of generic, looking generic on everything and delivering subpar quality, quality models and designs. Blizzard's design used to be one of the best in the gaming industry. Its art style was a flagship. Again, this is the blob face. Blob face, blob face, blob face, blob face. They don't have expressions. I don't even know what the fuck that thing is on the bottom right, but that's the new Centaur model. I'm not saying this is a point to say that everything in Classic looked amazing and retail, everything looks terrible. That's not the case. That's facetious. What I'm saying is expression in tone, color variation, all of those risks which classic WoW used to take and classic Warcraft used to take used to propel its designs further. You look at the Lich King's helmet. If you blob face the Lich King, if you turn him into a blob face like this thing in the top right, these characters don't look different. You could mask their expressions constantly. They have no expression, and that's caused because there's not very much tonal variation. It's very safe color. You look at the color palette from the skeleton and you see just how slow, the the color doesn't vary very much. It's just like a slow gradient. Here, slow gradient, massive thing. Now look at this. This is what stands out. You look at Illidan. This is my most favorite model in the entire game. It's sharp lighting. It takes risks. It's dark, very light, extremely light. That's nearly white. You don't even notice it, but the color on his face is nearly white. We're talking slow, gradual gradient versus expression. Color makes it stand out. Look how bright this green is. You won't, if you get a color checker, that green is nearly that's bright neon green. It doesn't look it because it's got massive contrast, and the contrast is important. You need things to stand out. Light is really important in design, in painting. It's what, some people who are watching this video, you might paint and you make the most amazing painting, and then you look at it after and you're like, it's wrong. It doesn't stand out. It looks boring. It looks flat. This is flat design. This is flat tonal variation. This is sharp. It stands out. The risks as well in design, of the original Warcraft models. Look how proportional all of these guys are. They generally, they don't take risks. When we're talking about the Nathrezim hands, look at the hands on the Satyr. I think they probably use the same rig as the Nathrezim just by the hand size. But again, disproportionate limbs and stuff makes stuff stand out. The Centaur, I mean, probably the most ugly model in the entire game in Classic. But compare it to the new Centaur. It doesn't hold a T. You could look at that and say that's from World of Warcraft. Again, tonal variation, risks. There's color. There's color. There's no color here. These are flat, boring colors. These are sharp colors. If you updated those models and stayed true, you would have really cool looking Centaur. I saw people complaining on the forums actually that these were racist apparently. Don't know why. It's unbelievable. That sensitivity, these people who say stuff like that, it's just beyond unhelpful because you end up with generic flat design. Deathwing, Cataclysm had some of the ugliest armor in my opinion, but oh my god, did the characters just look amazing. Once again, what are we looking at? Curves, disproportionate stuff. Look at his armor. It's absolutely badass. It's iconic. He's got like a lava tabard. It's crazy how cool that stuff was. And sharp. Look at his expression. Expression. No expression on the new model. Not expression on the Cataclysm model for Nosdormu either. But the Cataclysm Nosdormu, again, there's no flat colors. Um, and I think WoW was really peaking when it had these sharp contrasting colors and designs which, didn't physically make that much sense, but oh my god, they looked amazing. Look at Deathwing's boots. Um, Look how huge they are. They are enormous. This is what made the Lich King so awesome. Everything you everything from his shoulder plates and things, absolutely enormous. So yeah, that's really cool. New Nozdormo. The problem this has with flat colors and flat palettes is this. It's something you see people talk about a lot, but this is the reason why. Flat colors mean your characters can't express themselves. The lighting doesn't work. So you can't get expressive characters with this minimalist design. It's a massive fault in retail's cinematics and things like that. It just doesn't work. And, for someone to have to point that out rather than Blizzard just reviewing what's going wrong, this is a thing. Again, the flat minimalist design. You could put this in any different game. You could change World of Warcraft and it looks the same. Again, this is a perfect example how the classic style was not perfect. Not saying it's beautiful, but it was iconic. Lots of risk. These armors and things, they're bright, they stand out. WoW had a lot of color. And Blizzard they seem like they want to go on a color genocide and remove all color and turn everything flat and boring. This is amazing. Look at the color. It stands out. Everything from the spells they're casting to the armor, the High Warlord set. I love that stuff. Anyways, again, color. Bring color back to WoW. You don't need to give us these flat, boring designs. Bring color back. I think it makes the game look much better. Anyways, that is a big sort of video. Again, talking about this, the old Charger model. Looks amazing. But yeah, I thought that was a good way to talk about this. Don't know how long this video has gone for, but thanks for watching. Peace.